in the dark, I play my dreams. Permaculture flows like sweet streams. I'm the daddy with the know-how seed. Creating the world like it's meant to be. Permaculture, P-I-M-P, I'm the king. Wrapping love in everything. Bringing change, making it last. Join the permaculture.
Welcome to episode 390 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is My Passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, practical living, and sometimes prostitutes.
Permaculture, P-I-M-P, with soulful grace. In a VIP cast where we find our place.
All right, good to be here with y'all this evening. Wow, it's beginning to look a lot like corruption, but I'll come to that in a little bit. This episode, as always, brought to you by Hickory Ridge Soap from TwoOldCrowsHomestead.com.
Turn that simp into a pimp.
Bam, son, you're a little bit overdriven on your end. You're coming in a little bit heavy. All right. Also, Azure Standard, remember we got signed up with those guys, and Food for Health 15 is for new customers, and you can get 15% off on orders over $100. I don't know why you'd order from Azure and not get at least $100 worth. You know, part of the deal is to also stock up at the same time. All right, so we're going to jump right into farm news. Well, it was 9 degrees last night, so I'm curious to hear what it was where you were, son, or at least where you were. 9 degrees last night, and I got to be careful how I say this because every single time, folks, I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball here. Every time we do a live podcast on YouTube, which is by far our smallest audience, I mean, our largest audience is always going to be the audio format. But man, this crazy little phenomenon happens and I can't seem to figure it out. But every single time we do a podcast here, lo and behold, sure enough, 20 to 30 people are going to unsubscribe just like that every single time. I mean, as soon as we put the send button out, it's like YouTube's way of, slapping us in the face saying, oh, don't do that again. Well, anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and say it anyway. So the day before, I was out here with no shirt on, outside doing my thing, getting not only the vitamin D I need, but also doing some cold thermogenesis in the environment at the same time. And your mom's, man, she about lost her beans, son. She's looking up there and they are playing tic-tac-toe in the sky. And she's like, well, I guess I know how it's going to be down to 9 degrees tomorrow. Yeah. And sure enough, right on cue. So, I'm curious. So in
Topeka, Kansas, we went up to Grumpy's farm, Grumpy Acres. You can check him out on YouTube. Hacks for the Homesteader was there. Darren was there. Kyle from Bullet Homestead was there. It was just north of Topeka, and it was, I think, when we showed up to Grumpy's at like 8 a.m., it was 9 degrees, and thankfully it wasn't windy. They had forecasted like 20-degree gusts and stuff like that, or 20 mile per hour gusts and everything. But thankfully, he lived in an area where there were quite a few windbreaks and everything. But yeah, processing. We went up there to process a bunch of sheep and goats to stack the freezers. It was cold. It was very cold. I broke out cold weather gear that I hadn't broken out since for like a decade or so. I had my insulated overalls on. I had my insulated heavy duty coat on. I had layers on. And it was still cold. But wool socks, they help out quite a bit. I had some wool socks on, some wool thermals on. I had layers on top of that, insulated stuff. That I don't know if you remember, but you guys got me this merino wool almost scarf thing a while back. That thing does fantastic. Even though it's super thin and it allows the air to kind of go through, it still works fantastic. But anything that was exposed was freezing. And then it finally started warming up a little bit. And I don't know that it really warmed up. I think the high was like 24 degrees. But once you start getting into the carcass of the animal and everything, then you're kind of hijacking that warmth a little bit, and it comes in handy. But we processed. So Has this ever happened to you before, Dan? We processed some Rambouillet sheep. There were Rambouillet Katahdin sheep. I shot it point blank in the perfect spot with the 22, and it did not penetrate on the first time. The first shot, it like their skulls and their bones are so doggone dense. I had to do that. Chris was that Chris Tucker Biggie skit where it's like to shoot Biggie, you had to hit a bullet. You had to hit the bullet that you previously shot him with. That's the same thing I had to do with those Rambouillet sheep. Perfect shot. I shared holes on this one, and it would not go down on the first shot. Shot it again, and then it would drop. And then we ended up switching over to Grumpy's 9mm carbine and shooting him in the back of the head, and that seemed to work just fine. But have you ever had that happen before?
No, man, you were there, man. We've used a 22 to take down 400-pound pigs. I mean,
I know.
That's
I know.
I've never had that happen before. Wow.
And it was good quality 22 ammo. Like I went and got good quality 22 ammo just for this. It was like CCI something. But yeah, I did just fine on pigs before, 400-pound pigs, no issues. But this ram, it wasn't taking it.
Wow, that's a new one on me, man. Well, I guess there is something to be said about using a 410 slug, man. I ain't nothing walking away from that. Well, there was one pig.
That pig, yeah.
Yeah, there was that one pig. You can take him down with the 22, but 410, he's just sitting there looking at you. Yeah, so man, we'll come to that in a minute. Anyway, I put out a picture the other day on YouTube, and Pete's asking, do we normally shoot or slit? It depends on the animal. And, if I can get a hold of them, I can do it all with a knife. Not a problem. So I usually do both. I usually shoot them just to kind of stun them. It may not take them out, but it is going to make them unconscious or at least not know where they are. Not to get too graphic for some folks here, but then, I usually run my knife up in there. And once you see that blood flowing, it's just a matter of time. They're done. So, I put a picture of a mycelium log. I was down there getting firewood off the pile, and man, it looked like a perfect little snowflake all over this log, folks. Don't burn that. Yeah, you can burn it, but get that off of there first and put it in your compost pile. Man, that is like some of the best. That is compost gold right there, especially when you have a pile that's already come to ambient temperature or it's cooling down. That's when your fungus is really going to go to work. Son, you want to tell them why?
That's when, once you hit the lower temperatures on your compost, that's when you want to add your fungal element, because if it's hot, then the fungi is just going to go dormant. But if you can add it in once it's gone down to temperature, then that's just going to boost your fungi count like crazy. And especially if you're trying to apply that compost to something that's more perennial, so like berry bushes, fruit bushes, trees, or if you're even trying to like fertilize add compost to a food forest or anything like that, you really want that fungal element. Nobody, of all the soil tests I've done, nobody's had ever too much fungi in their soil. Everybody's lacking fungi. Everybody has bacteria for the most part, unless it's just completely dead, barren soil. I've only had one test where everything was dead or dormant, but everything else is always lacking fungi for the most part.
And that's why you want to use it, folks, especially right now, especially when you got that wood off your own property. Because it's not like you introduced a fungus from, I don't know, let's say you ordered it from Joe Blow I live in Western North Carolina. Let's say I got some down in Georgia. Well, my fungus here, let's say it's a, I can't even think of one right now, but let's just say it's a fungus that exists in both places. But the one I get from my place is absolutely adapted to where I am. So I see it on wood, and I know that fungi is the mouth of the forest. When you see mushrooms, that's the fruiting body of that fungus. Okay? There's way more going on underground. It's the internet of the forest. It is the mouth of the forest. So when you're able to acquire this stuff from your own property or someplace near it, man, that is compost gold. So put it out there and make sure you keep that compost moist. So you want to make sure, I put a picture out there, man. It is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I'm sure YouTube didn't care for that picture either. So anyway, got other things going on around here. I ordered some more of those metal 4x8 beds. I'm going to replace the ones I got out back for a variety of reasons, not the least of which being that it was never designed exactly the way I like it. It was This is why, like William talks about all the time on this podcast, you want to make sure you do everything right on paper at first. Now, when we first put those in here, it made perfect sense. It made perfect sense for the environment that we had. But, as things develop, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a little bit too close to that bank there. I may want to get a side-by-side down here one day, and it's just not going to work out. Plus, I can get way more soil in some of these 2x4 beds. These other ones I have might be about 14 inches tall. So that's going to be one thing that we're going to change out hopefully here when it warms up a little bit. Okay, some other things here. Well, I went to one of the freedom groups I go to. I don't celebrate Christmas, but they were having a Christmas party. So for a whole variety of reasons, I wanted to go there, and it was downtown in Asheville. I wanted to go there for a couple of reasons, not the least of which being is that it's a good place to get information. All right. So these are people that are typically very well connected. And then plus the networking in places like this is really, really astonishing. So I go to these things, and folks, you might want to do them too. So I go there once a month if I'm able. And they had a little Christmas party there, man. I don't know what I was thinking, man, but I sat there and ate some cookies that, look, y'all, me and sugar just don't work well together. So I was snoring last night. I'd gotten rid of the sleep apnea a while back, but I am finding out, and it may be helpful for some of you out there to hear about it too. If I got an allergy to glyphosate, and I think a lot of you do as well, and also refined sugar. I can eat honey, no problem. But man, I start fooling around with regular sugar or anything like it, y'all, I am going to snore that night, which is an open indication of something I shouldn't be eating. So wanted to let y'all know. I know it's, some people are going to be getting into the cookies and the cakes and all those types of things. Man, I just can't do it. And if I do, it's got to be something that's here that I can absolutely maintain the provenance of the ingredients that are going into it. And then I screwed up the day before. It's okay that I eat some of your mom's cookies, but I can't eat 14 of them, so yeah,
No.
one or two is cool. But when she makes these sourdough shortbread cookies, which are probably my favorite, good night, man. I can't just lose my mind and just eat the whole doggone bag. So everything in moderation, but yeah, that's not a cool thing for me. Anyway, let's see here. Oh, I wanted to make sure I pointed out one more thing, Sam, before I hand it over to you. Look, I've encouraged a number of you to go out there and get that D-Minder app. It's called D/Minder, and it's going to help you maintain your vitamin D levels, or at least to give you a good barometer of where you are and the times of day that you can actually get it. Now, I think Eric Sider just got it a little while ago. Folks, you got to keep in mind, make sure you look at that app. It takes a little bit to get used to. It's not difficult, but it does have a corridor in which you're able to get the vitamin D. Now, being out in the sun any time of day is going to be helpful. You may not be getting UVB midday, but you may be getting UVA. You may be getting some other, wavelengths in the sun. So anytime you're able to get it. But if you're going to count your vitamin D and you're wondering why that app isn't working, you got to make sure you do it within that window. And it'll tell you on the app depending on your location. So I think he went up to the mountains and he's like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Well, I could tell by where the sun was showing on the app that he was well past the time of him being able to get vitamin D. So folks, just keep that in mind. The app will tell you, depending on your latitude, the optimal times to get vitamin D, and then it'll keep track of it for you. So want to make sure I pointed that out. Son, let me go ahead and kick it over to you because you had a lot going on this last week.
Yeah. We left a couple of days ago. We went up to Topeka, just north of Topeka, Kansas, Hoyt, Kansas. And we went over to Grumpy Acres Farm. I remember last Midwest Preparedness Festival, he mentioned that he was getting rid of, he tried to sell a bunch of sheep and goats to like the local community, and nobody really wanted any sheep or goats. So he was selling them for a pretty awesome price. And I said, hey, well, I want some. I want to put some in the freezer. Some friends want some for sure. So we went up there this past weekend, which worked out. The temperature was a pain, and they were definitely spraying the day before. It was just a solid haze everywhere. But it worked out for the better because what we ended up doing was, in total, we did the shooting, the gutting, the skinning, and then we cut it down the sagittal plane. all at his property. Now we have the meat back at my property and back at my house, and now we're doing all the finishing cuts and everything. But we ended up doing 5 sheep and 4 goats. 1 sheep and 1 goat was for Grumpy and them. And then the rest was for us, so we can stack these freezers and everything. But yeah, the temperature was a pain, but it did help in just keeping the meat like real nice and cool on the way back to the house. It was a long day though. That was a long day because it's not just the gutting and skinning that takes a while. That takes it out of you, but it's also the killing. I mean, that's always taxing as well, but also just maintaining body temperature at the same doggone time. That wipes you out like nothing. But Grumpy was there, him and Angela were there, and then Darren, Patty, and Daniel came over, and then Kyle from Bullet Homestead, he came over, and it was a cool little, like, I guess, gathering, stuff like that. They had and it was perfect timing because as we're taking sheep out of his flock, new ones are being born. Now when he had it planned, it wasn't supposed to be 9 degrees in December in Kansas at that time, or November, December. It was supposed to be like 50-degree days and then maybe 20-degree nights and stuff. So it was definitely an outlying temperature fluctuation, but it was awesome. My buddy got to learn how to just got more comfortable with the process. And then he's also going to be tanning some of the hides as well. So he has a whole stack of hides for him to get some practice in. And that's going to be cool. There's 3 of those sheep in particular have that thick winter coat on them. So that's going to be handy in making whatever he's going to make in the future. We're joking. Fur in loincloths.
No, man, I tell you what, there is nothing that keeps you warmer than animal fur. I mean, up in Alaska, it was crazy because on our Arctic mittens,
I got them right here.
You got the Arctic mittens?
Yeah.
Okay, so even on, I don't know if do you have the real ones?
Not with the real deer, but it still has that same like warming effect of like wiping your nose and everything.
Okay, so on the back of those mittens, I mean, those are kind of handy, folks, in really cold environments for those that don't know it out there. So you have they're really big, so you can get your gloves with your fingers in it down in there. So what I do with those Arctic mittens, and I got some back here, I got the ones with the deer fur on the outside of it. The cool thing about having a natural fiber like that, a natural fur, is that no matter how cold it is outside, I kid you not, if your nose is running, whatever, you got to wipe your face, it's almost room temperature. So it'll blow your mind. That was one of those tricks I learned up in Alaska. So you keep your hands down in those mittens in these very, very cold environments, and you got your regular fingered gloves on underneath, but inside those mittens, obviously everything's warmer. And then if you want to really kick it off, man, you can take some of those hand warmers and stick them down in there. I've been known to do that a time or two. And then the cool thing about those Arctic mittens is that they got snaps on them. So I put dummy cords and attach it to my mittens, and they go over my shoulder. And so I have 550 cord on my mittens. So every time I take my mittens off, I don't have to put them on the ground or worry about where I put them. All I do is just take them off, either let them dangle in front, or if I know I can take them behind me and snap them, and they stay in place. So that's another little trick I picked up in Alaska as well. So you can put your hand warmers down there. You can be in some pretty awful areas. And I'm glad you pointed it out too, because these days, summer or winter, I don't wear anything but wool on my feet. I do have wool long johns, silk long johns. Folks, I'm telling you, silk works. If you think wool works great, you haven't seen anything yet until you can get some silk long johns, because the thing about regular long johns, whether they're cotton or any other fiber out there, the thing that burns you up with those things is that they are itchy, they're scratchy, they're irritant. When you put on silk long johns, you can't even tell you got them on. Yeah. And they insulate. They're a fraction of the thickness, and they insulate far better than any of the polypropylene or any of that other garbage that they issue out there. I'm telling, I got silk long johns that I could hold up to the light and you can see through.
Oh yeah.
You are absolutely so warm, it'll blow your mind. So if it's not silk or wool, nothing but silk or wool touches this body. Y'all hear the language I'm talking? I feel like I need to play some Barry White, but yeah, that's the point. So I'll take it everything went well up there. How many animals did you take home?
Was it 7 total? So we did 5 sheep, 4 goats. 1 sheep and 1 goat was for Grumpy. And then the rest were for us. So we're bringing, we're still going through the pile right now.
Well, how are y'all
kinda-
keeping them cool while you're going through all this? I mean, is everything processed?
Everything's broken down into primals, but the closest place to buy dry ice around here, I have freezers, so we're kind of cycling things through the freezers. But the closest place to buy dry ice from here is an hour and a half away, like one way. That's the closest place you can buy dry ice. So what we have is just like the meat on top of ice. It's just sitting on ice, but it's still cold here. Last night, for Texas, I think it was like in the 20s, which is rare. And
good hanging, yeah.
And moringa is still growing.
Wow, man, that's good stuff. Yeah. That's good stuff. Well, I'm glad that thing went well. So did anybody else take any meat home, or was everybody just there to help?
Everybody was just there to help or hang out. Nobody else really wanted meat. I think Darren and them have their own sheep, and then Kyle has his own sheep too. He just came out to come lend a hand and help and everything like that. Which Kyle, I mean, he had this one bone saw that was awesome. I got to show you this one that we used. It was awesome. It was made by Elk Ridge, and it looked like it was like it was part of a mobile deer processing kit, but it was some of the best teeth on a bone saw I've seen. Most efficient cuts I think I've seen.
Only complaint I have with Leatherman, man, is I wish they would come out with a kit that had a legit bone saw on it that you could get through. I mean, I've done that video before where I did an entire pig with nothing but my Leatherman.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if they had a bone saw, man, you could work through, man, that would absolutely, because those Leatherman knives, man, you can really keep them kind of sharp. You can do everything you need to do with it. But man, when you get down to brass tacks, man, it would sure be nice to have a bone saw on there. But I don't know if they ever want to come up with a Pimp Daddy collection, get with me. But right now, man, I think they're struggling to stay in business, man.
Well, they're back. They're back now. So for those of you who don't know, I collect knives and kind of pay attention to that stuff. But yeah, Leatherman, during COVID, they were struggling to the point where the old man who started Leatherman had to come back and start working again. But since then, they're kind of blowing up. They're expanding some aspects of them. Some aspects, like they're doing like actual pocket knives and like fixed blade knives and stuff like that. And then they've come up with a couple of different designs for Leatherman. But there's still quite a few complaints to be had with Leatherman. For example, their recent pricing, they've come up with a few new models, like the one that I gave you a while back. So that was the last one you could buy and still receive the bit driver set with it. They came out with a new color and then removed the bit set completely. So it's like you're paying the same price, but you're getting less with the package. And they try to do it so where like nobody would notice, but everybody immediately noticed. So
yeah, that's a shame, man. I mean, I've loved their product. I mean, back in the day in the Army, man, they used to make them with blasting cap crimpers, man, and it was kind of handy when you're a soldier and you do that sort of thing. I won't say much about it, not in this platform, but yeah, man, I've long loved their product. Somebody asked here, do you cure the hides of the animal? Yeah, I know how to do it. I've only ever done rabbits, but that is a lot. Folks, I say this, please don't misunderstand what I'm about to tell you right now. I say this not to turn you off from it, but I'm telling you what, there's enough brain in every animal to tan that hide. I know how to do it, but it's a lot of work. I'm not a stranger to working. I don't mind working. It's just I can't devote all that time to doing that work. That's the problem I'm going through right now. So
it's like milk.
What's that?
Milk. It's like milk. If somebody's already set up to do that, then I would rather support that person and receive milk from them than to retooling and then being like my job. I can't be stuck to the property. I have to go on the road and do consultations and everything. My buddy, he's getting all the hides and everything because he's tooled up to do that. He has a fleshing knife, he has a fleshing post, he has a frame to dry it out and everything and stretch it out and everything like that. Even
still, that is a lot of work. It really is. It takes a while to get through it, especially if you're going to smoke the hides and the whole 9 yards. That takes a while to do. But yeah, there are people like William said. My buddy Bo, who I'm going to have on the show hopefully next week if he can swing it. He was just texting me about it the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to farm this out and give it to somebody else because, man, there ain't nothing that keeps you warmer than animal hides, folks. You know, PETA, whatever. I mean, yeah, I'm for the ethical treatment of animals, and I guarantee we're more ethical about it than any of these processing houses out there by far. And I'm telling you what, it is hard to beat a natural animal fiber when it comes down to everything. Like I said, wool, that's what I wear. If I could find linen pants that actually had cargo pockets and held up, I would probably wear those. But by and large, I'm doing the best I can to try to, find everything I can in the natural fiber. All right. With that said, all right, before I move on to the next section, well, it was I was going down there. Your mom gets so aggravated when I put on NPR, but I was putting it on in the morning when we were doing the chores.
I get it.
I get it too, but I like to know what my enemy thinks. So that's why I tune in. And then also I want to know what my enemy thinks on Fox News. Yeah, folks, if you think I'm a partisan for any of these people, they're all equally garbage in my view. They're all Operation Mockingbird skunks. So yeah, I was listening to NPR this morning, and they announced, I mean, it was just like a matter of fact thing, said, "Oh yeah, we got 3 soldiers that died in Syria." I'm like, what? Say what? Hold on. So when did we put troops over in Syria? And when did we get a declaration of war? That's a little bit odd. And I'm like, okay, now just in time for the holidays. Yeah. Wow. We got 3 troops dead in Syria. What? When did we deploy troops over there? They just throw it in there as if I'm like, hold on. Oh, okay. I guess that's what most of their people do, but no, I'm not one of them. So, yeah, so much for stopping all these foreign wars, huh? So I thought I'd put that out there. And then, of course, I saw this other video, and this has nothing to do with the show at all. I'm just letting you know that everything you know is a manufactured lie. New York mayor, that Mondani or whatever his name is, son, I don't know if you saw it or not. I know you've been busy, but man, they got this video of him at this, despite everything this guy said, he's supposedly some radical Muslim. And here he is at a Hasidic Jewish gathering. They're dancing around, got the music playing, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, you folks didn't realize y'all just got played again? Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So here we are. We got played at the national level. No more wars, no more foreign wars. But here we are, blowing ships right down there in Venezuela. I'll cover more of that here in a minute. And then over here in New York City, man, they tell you one thing and then they do the total polar opposite. And the worst part about it is we live in the United States of amnesia. Nobody remembers what was promised. Nobody remembers what was said. And I'm like, okay, so you're told this guy's a radical Muslim, but here he is, all smiles and giggles, even got the little hat on, the whole 9 yards at a Jewish gathering. Huh. Wow. Everybody's getting played again, but of course, nobody's going to pay any attention. So I wanted to say that before I got on to the next thing. Remember, y'all, we got the Sovereign Health Summit. That's going to be coming up October 27th through the 31st. If you want to, we're live streaming this thing. You can get 5% off whether you want to be there in person or whether you're going to do it through the live stream. That's going to be TPC. That'll get you 5% off, folks. That's all we can do. I mean, this thing is already steeply as discounted as we can possibly make it. So anyway, you want to go check that out. TPC will get you 5% off. And then finally, we got EMF Rocks, 10% off with Perma. I'm going to have this Wednesday, I'm going to have Dr. Franson on. Hopefully on William's holding up the bag right now. I'm going to have Dr. Franson on, and son, you're welcome to come on as well. That's going to be this Wednesday. And we're going to be talking about some other things. And EMF, we're going to be talking about the dangers of that and hopefully doing it in a way that's not going to get us canceled, because when you talk about ways in which somebody can actually heal themselves, that's when the powers that shouldn't be start getting worried about things. So we're going to have them on this Wednesday. We're going to talk more about it. And I'm lining up with some other folks. Folks, everything I use, I'm going, son, I was going around here and I was thinking, man, I have never had on like the CBD product, the CBA that I use, CBDA that I get from Ness's Hemp. I've never had her on this program. I've been using that thing for 2 years. I'm like, man, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this to people.
Yeah.
So everything I use for vitality, health, the whole 9 yards, I'm going to start bringing these people on the show and, make everybody aware of these healing modalities because from the crap they're dropping from the sky or whatever pestilence they intend to invoke upon us, whatever the case may be, man, people have got to have solutions out there. That's why, I've been bringing a lot of these people on as of late because I want you to know who they are because they're not easing off of what's going on. All right, so let me get into some of this quasi good news. Okay, it isn't good news, but it kind of is because you know what not to do. This first one is how skimping on sleep is stealing years from American lives. And when you go through this thing, you find out that, man, just by getting 7 hours instead of 8, if you're a person that's accustomed to 8, and son, you're a sleep medicine tech, in your former life.
Yep.
So just by, I've been talking about circadian health and all these other things, just by having jacked up sleep, man, can mess up everything. That's another reason why I want to get Nessa's hemp on here and, get maybe Logan back on here to talk about circadian health, because if you do it right, you will naturally be sleepy by the time it's time to go to bed. And then there's other things, that we can talk about that'll help you stay asleep. Anything you want to say on that matter?
Yeah, keep in mind that sleep changes, like the amount of sleep you need changes as you get older too. So if you think of a baby sleeping a lot, right? And then you hit puberty and then you're sleeping a lot again. And then you hit adulthood, and then anywhere between like 6 to 8 hours is normal for adulthood as far as like healthy sleep. But then it gets really specific to the person. Like one person might need like a solid 8 hours of sleep, and then another person might need like a solid 6 hours of sleep, and they're just good to go. Now, keep in mind, your sleep debt can't be paid off all in one go. So let's say tonight, for example, I only get 4 hours of sleep and my body's accustomed to getting 7 hours of sleep. I can't make up that 3 hours that I missed the next night. The best you can do is like cycle increments. So a cycle usually lasts about 90 minutes. I have to add 90 minutes to each additional night until I make up that 3 hours that I lost tonight. So just think, like, if you miss like one good night of sleep, you didn't pay that debt in the next night of getting like extra hours of sleep. So, and then also keep in mind that like oversleeping can be just as harmful to you as undersleeping. So sleep is, and then also keep in mind, like whenever I was doing this sleep study stuff, every time they'd make a claim, they'd always end it with like, well, we're not really sure because sleep is a pretty big mystery. Like as far as like dreams, sleeps, all that, like the cycles, the cause for the different cycles, the meaning for the different cycles, all that type of stuff. They kept ending it with like, we're not really sure because sleep is a big mystery. So.
Well, and I'm also finding out too that when you look into some of the work of Dr. Jack Kruse and some of the others, that a lot of these sleep doctors have no understanding of circadian health. They have no idea that you should get up in the morning and be looking directly at the sun. They have no idea what these blue lights that we're surrounded by everywhere we go, mostly in our houses at night, by putting them on, the problems that those are creating with your sleep. So it's all those things that when you take as a totality, there's a whole lot of these studies that really are not even worthwhile when you get down to brass tacks on them, because there's so many important things that they didn't know about at the time. And frankly, a lot of them still don't know about, and a number of others still don't want to know about. So anyway, just keep that in mind, y'all, especially this time of year. Let's see here. Somebody says, check out Breatharians. That sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I had probably the worst sleep apnea they said they had ever seen.
Yep.
Probably the worst. And folks, I don't use a machine anymore. Now, there's other things I got to do as well. Like obviously don't drink coffee past noon. And that's definitely a big one for me. Don't eat sugar, certainly not in excess, and stay away from glyphosate in any form. And lo and behold, guess what? You don't snore. At least I don't. So there's a number of other things. And of course, that's nothing any sleep doctor ever tells you anyway. So anyway, got rid of the sleep apnea, the whole 9 yards. And I was one of the worst ones out. The folks, they almost kicked me out of the Army because of it. That's how bad it was. So, got that in line. And folks, there's a lot of these so-called experts out there that don't know their butt from a hole in the ground. All right. So EPA, here's the next one. EPA head Zeldin Americans questioning geoengineering deserve answers. Okay. So I'm going to take this one as quasi good news. And the reason I'm saying it, okay, this is the same guy that told us that this is coming out of the back end of all these planes flying over. Well, today was, outside of the haze that they left from last night, you're seeing planes fly over and you see this contrail that dissipates, moments after it comes out of the back of the jet. Okay, what, did they ground all the planes today? You really want me to believe that? So, it's in the fuel, it's coming through the engines. And then people like Dane Wigington come out there with jet engine mechanics saying, hold on, man, if this were coming exclusively out of the jet engines, it would gum these planes up. They'd be falling out of the sky. No, it's coming out of these doggone nozzles in most cases. I'm not saying that they haven't come up with another way of doing it. And keep in mind, like I've talked about before, the last thing, who was that guy from WikiLeaks, son? His name escapes me right now. Assange. The last thing he tweeted, y'all, before they locked him up for a decade, and of course he ain't said 2 words since that I can detect. The last thing he talked about was these nanoparticles that they're dropping out of there. And then right then and there, folks, they wrapped him up like a pretzel. And he was locked away. So now he's in the minors right now, or he's just, put out to dry. But anyway, going back to this Lee Zeldin, yeah, he's putting on a good face out there. But I know people that have talked to him directly, and I know people that have talked to RFK Jr. directly, people like Dane Wigington, who just happens to be a friend of mine. Folks, what they're telling you in these headlines and what these people are saying these are pathological liars that they're talking about, okay? This is not that difficult to solve. I didn't just step out of the cotton fields, and all of you folks didn't either. You're going to tell me they deserve answers to questions. Look, it's coming out from the nozzles. We can see it in the Deming documentary, in the What in the World Are They Spraying documentary, in the Why in the World Are They Spraying documentary. These aren't hard questions to solve, but they're putting pablum out here for the American public to just eat it right up. So I'm glad at least, I'm calling this halfway good news because at least the question is now being posed. So you got anything on that?
Yeah, if you want to see these actual spray nozzles and these spray rigs and everything, go to geoengineeringwatch.org. If you have any question about whether any of this is legit, go to geoengineeringwatch.org, go to the patents section, go to the document section, go to the resources section, and the patents say it all. The patents say everything you need to know. But they have pictures, they have diagrams, they have like all these, like the pictures, all the information that you would need if you're curious at all about any of this stuff.
The thing that blows my mind is people are still throwing around the word conspiracy theory. Man, it makes me sick every time a normie says that. Every time you say conspiracy theory, folks, you're falling right into the trap of the CIA. They broke the mothballs off of that one, long after JFK was assassinated, for the express purpose of marginalizing anybody that asked critical questions about how he was actually murdered. No, it wasn't no Oswald either. So anyway, it's kind of hard to call this stuff a conspiracy theory when there are actual patents on it, and they're doing it, and they're dropping this garbage from the sky every single day. What blows my mind is that I'm like, come on, folks, man. Do you guys and gals have kids? Do you have grandkids? Do you care? And then the same people who know every statistic about everybody in the NFL, they'll be the first ones to say to me, son, what do you think is the first thing they say?
What can we do about it?
What can I do about it? Yeah, what can you do about those NFL stats? But you know everything about them. You tell everybody else about them. Yeah, it blows my mind every single time these guys that need to sack up, grab those NUTs. And I did a thing about, basic things man should know. Well, part of taking care of your family is making sure they're not being poisoned. Look, talk to anybody, whether you got a giant platform or whether you know the people at work. At least just do Socratic questions where you go up and say, man, I don't remember ever seeing this stuff as a kid. Even if it's you're working with, let's say, a moron on legs. You can do little things that move the needle in a very easy way. There are going to be some of those people that will not wake up no matter what. But anyway, when you ask, what can you do? Tell somebody. That's exactly where you start. I mean, you got to tell somebody, get the word out and let everybody know what is happening. All right. So here's the last one. I'm calling this one good news for very different reasons. Eric's probably going to start sending me a bunch of them saying, dude, I'm going to give you actual good news stories here. For some reason, they were difficult to come by today, but check this out. Venezuela accuses U.S. of piracy after seizure of oil tanker and disputed sanctions enforcement. Folks, hate to tell you this. We have 900 military bases in 130 countries. Let me ask you, son, do you think that qualifies us as an empire?
Yeah, guys, we're the bad guys.
We are the bad guys here.
We are the bad guys.
This, but it's like, they tell you they're drug dealers coming over. Yeah, you told me there were weapons of mass destruction too. And the same people who fell for all those lies. I mean, I wonder sometimes if I'm kidding myself to think that the American public's ever going to wake up. I don't even know how many people just got murdered with this little thing that they stuck in everybody's arm. How many people just got murdered and everybody's already forgotten about that? How many people got myocarditis? Dr. Peter McCullough was talking about, and I'll never forget it, and I brought it up on the program before, that, he sees people, I'll circle back to the Venezuelan thing here in a minute, but he says, man, I'm seeing something I've never seen before, man. People are losing their kids through this thing. And he says they just kind of yawn and say, okay, what's for dinner? He says normally when a person would lose a child, man, this is the most dreadful thing in the world. But he said by and large, they just kind of yawn and go on about their business. Like he's never seen anything like this in all these years of practicing medicine. Now, let me swing on back to the rah, rah, rah crowd. Folks, I love my country. I'm a former soldier, but I'm here to tell you, we are the bad guys in this. In fact, if you doubt me, go look at the work. I'm going to bring his name up again. General Smedley Butler, the only one of the very small list of generals that I actually do respect. Guy won the Medal of Honor twice. Would have been the only person in history to ever win it a third time, but he passed it up. And he wrote a book called War is a Racket. And he describes how he was used, how the Marines were used, and of course he was a Marine Corps general, how they were used to work as henchmen for big corporations in all these other countries that didn't want to pay up and we wanted our hush money. That's exactly what he says in that book. And now, like I said, the war is a racket. I really need to memorize the opening statement of that book where he says, war is a racket. It always has been. And that's exactly what you're seeing here in Venezuela. You get guys shot up in a boat and they go back and strafe them a second time when they're hanging on the wreckage. And then they get them back here. And then the court says, you don't have any evidence on them. Let them go. So you murdered these guys for nothing? I mean, this is absolutely insane. I do not look, I'm all about America first. I am not for what I see unfolding right now. Yes, I'm calling this good news because guess what? We are pirates. That's exactly what we're doing right now. And I know a whole lot of boomers are going to be like, oh, to hell with you, you arrogant black bastard. I know you people out there crying and doing all this other stuff. I don't care. I really don't care. I am a soldier. I'm a former soldier, and I'm all about my country, but this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to put my name on this. I'm not going to endorse this. I'm not going to be okay with this. Like I said, go back, check out Smedley Butler. There's been a couple of other generals out there. By and large, I don't trust generals. But, yeah, I know a lot of boomers are out there losing their minds right now, but hey, get loose or get lost, man. I really don't care. I am not going to put my hand on genocide and be okay with what's happening in the Middle East. I'm not going to be okay with piracy. I'm not going to be okay with cold-blooded murder. If these guys, okay, son, do you know what the biggest laughable thing about this? Okay, you're leaving from Venezuela and you're in one of these boats. I think it was Ted Broer. I can't remember who actually calculated how many fuel you're telling me they're driving that boat from there all the way to the United States. Let's say they're going to go to the bottom part of Texas. They would have to fill up 12 times.
Yeah.
How's that happening? So you're telling me that boat, that little speed boat, is going from there all the way to with cargo. That's what you're trying to tell me?
Yep.
Okay.
But go ahead.
No, what my bottom line is that if you could interdict these people, why wouldn't you do that and get the evidence? And better still, if you just murdered everybody on that boat, wouldn't it be better? Let me ask you something. Would it be better to capture those people, interrogate them, and then find out exactly where this stuff is coming from, find out all the loose ends of their operation. But no, you go out there and you murder them, and that's exactly what this is, folks. You murder them on the high seas. No, I'm not okay with this.
But they also can't have these people saying, well, like, what do you mean don't bring the drugs in? That's what you told us to do. That's what you paid us to do.
The CIA has been, go back and read Gary Webb, folks. If you haven't heard about that, San Jose Mercury, they even made a movie about him. If you really want to get into the weeds of it, proved back in the 80s that all of the crack, all of it, not 92%, not 99, 100% of it was being brought in by the CIA, given to people like Freeway Ricky Ross. Yeah, that's a tongue twister for me. And there was a movie made by Jeremy. Oh man, I can't even remember the name of it. But anyway, go check out Gary Webb, San Jose Mercury, and look at the movie they made about him. Jeremy, doggone it, I can't think of the guy's name. He's an actor. He's a good actor, but yeah, made that movie about him. And of course, he comes up murdered, 2 shots to the head, but it was ruled a suicide by breaking the news of what really happens. And there's other people out there talked about the octopus conspiracy. Just murdered in cold blood when they break out the fact that the CIA is bringing in all of the drugs.
If you want to learn it in a concise manner, check out a rapper named Immortal Technique and the song named Peruvian Cocaine.
Bam.
Look that up. And it completely tells you, it gives you all the information in the form of a story and in the form of a song. That's all you need to know.
I'm glad you brought that up, son, because like you said, in that song, he chronicles it from beginning to end, from the coca fields to the time it comes in and everybody that puts their hands on it before it hits the streets. So yeah, folks, I hate drugs. I want to see them eradicated. You're not telling me that this is all coming out of Venezuela, and you're not telling me that our government isn't 100% in on it, especially when the goods have been out there forever and a day. But most people don't know anything about this information. That's why we're dropping it right here. Didn't expect to spend that much time on this, but yeah, I'm calling it good news because you know what? Venezuela's actually calling it out for what it is, man. This is absolute piracy, and I ain't cool with this. What we're doing down there is downright murder, and I'm not cool with this. These are not combatants. Did we make a declaration of war either in Syria, in Venezuela, in all the other places in the 130 countries where we have military bases all over? Everybody's cool with that? I'm not. We are an empire, and the sooner you hear it, the better. All right, with that said, we're going to go to my man, Eric Sider.
Hey, Eric Sider here with your Pimpcast tip of the day. Today's tip: can permaculture feed the world? Bill Mollison said agriculture is the most destructive system on Earth. It's been around for thousands of years, but has been failing from the start. A system that is not building soil quantity and quality is not sustainable. People can come up with all kinds of justifications for maintaining a destructive and psychotic system, but if we can't feed ourselves without industrial agriculture, then maybe we have no right to exist in the first place. Small-scale perennial polyculture is the only way we've ever fed ourselves sustainably. So the question shouldn't be, can permaculture feed the world, but will we allow permaculture to feed the world? Because we have to put in wholesale changes of our mentality and entitlement over our food and the underlying infrastructure that makes it all happen. This isn't going to happen overnight. We need years to make this transition. Do we have the time? It doesn't appear so. Inevitably, there will be a lot of pain and suffering while this shift takes place. We are not connected to the land, and therefore, people have a huge education and lifestyle change so we can all participate in local food resilience. People have a lot of romantic notions about pre-Columbus America, but there was an abundance of food, most of it managed by people. Large parts of North America were essentially a chestnut overstory food forest. That's what we need to do to the suburbs. We can have housing and annual production on the edges, all managed by animal systems, with an abundance of food, an abundance of health, an abundance of wealth, and everybody can have a job that wants one. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Eric Sider. If you're in need of permaculture t-shirts, the official pimp gear of the Pimpcast, or remote permaculture consultation and design, head over to ericsider.com. For more info on my permaculture community group, head over to permaculturefairoaks.org.
That's my dog right there, knocking it out of the park like he always does. Yeah, son, anything to add to that?
I don't know what you could. I mean, it did. Okay, so there was a guy in the comments earlier with Zegley said that's my nitrogen fixer. Yep, that is. But there was somebody in the comments earlier saying like we need to grow. Was it like beans? Like it's way more efficient than meat production. We can do it on large scale and feed the world and stuff like that. I think Eric's response was a perfect response to what was being said earlier, because like it's not about like more nutrition or like nutrient density within food. It's how close it is to you. That's going to be the best food. So, I mean, that could derail the rest of the podcast. And we could go on that topic.
No, I think he said a mouthful right there. And folks, I mean, this is why we always love to have that third party come in here, because he's always providing a, something that's really, really thoughtful that everybody needs to consider. All right. So Mycronic Silver, Mycronic. Yeah. We're talking about rappers earlier. So Snoop came up with the Mycronic album, or the I keep thinking of that every time. Mycronic Silver, 10% off with promo code PERMA. I'm going to have him back on here in a couple of weeks to talk about some of the latest developments that are going on there and about dental care. So I know there's a couple of y'all out there in this chat where you ain't got a tooth left in your head. So we're going to talk about how you keep the ones you got. So, and we're going to talk about how silver might be a big, big help on some of that. So, 5th generation warfare, 7 ways the fight came to your back door. Now, folks, we did a show a while back on talking about 5th generation warfare, and I even did a front porch talk about that very same thing. The reason why I keep going down this road is because this is the most insidious kind of warfare, and it's pernicious in a way that I don't even know how to describe. It's because it's not like, for thousands of years, farming is about growing food. Then it became about commodities, as we have here in the United States of amnesia. And then now it's about control. There's no tanks rolling through your pasture right now, no soldiers kicking in the doors, but make no mistake, the fight has arrived anyway. And I wanted to talk about some of the insidious things using 5th generation warfare and how it pertains to farming. Some of the things you may have thought about, but maybe you haven't put them all together and why they are happening the way they are. Bottom line is, folks, the number one way I came up with is land without true ownership. That is absolutely the biggest out there, folks. Look, as long as you're paying taxes, you're paying rent. Don't pay your taxes, and then what happens? Yeah. They come in with the merry men and they clean you out and put you on the street, just like it's happening to a whole lot of farmers right now, or they have to sell out to the bigs. So zoning in a lot of these places is basically you're asking for permission on what you're allowed to grow. Now, we've talked about some ways in which to get around some of that stuff. And then, of course, one of the other things they like to use under the land ownership thing is environmental rules. Yeah, these rules that totally ignore ecology, or at least real ecology, not this left-wing lunatic nonsense that they have out there. And, generational farms, bottom line, are being lost through paperwork, through bureaucracy, not even by force. So when ownership becomes conditional, I guess you could say independence kind of disappears. What do you have to say on that one, son?
No, you're 100% right. Like, how much do you really own the land if you have to pay taxes on it? And what happens if you stop paying taxes on it? You lose the property. So did you really ever own the land? I mean, there's other things you can do, like trusts and whatnot, but they have to be renewed. The fact that you even have to go that route in order to keep that land in the family is insane. And then, like, what kind of taxes do the inheritors of those properties have to pay just to keep that land? It's absolutely insane. And I was kind of ranting to my buddy, like, let's start a country. Let's instead of paying taxes, let's figure out a way we get paid taxes. And I don't mean that meaning like we should have like subservient populace to the owner of that country or anything like that, but just flipping the thing, like flipping the whole scenario, or the demographic, or just flipping the scenarios. Like, how do we get out of having to pay taxes to own a piece of property and turn it into something like where we're getting paid to own this piece of property.
Well, there are strategies that we use. I'm not prepared to get into that right now because I don't need them coming down on me like a ton of bricks right now. But there are strategies in which you can get around some of this stuff, and maybe in the future I can talk about that or get somebody who knows a little bit. I'm just going to leave that one right there. But there are ways, folks. I'm not just telling you. I'm trying to let you know how the 5th generation warfare has made it to your farm, and many of you don't even know it. So the next one I got here is seed dependence. Seeds used to be, to a certain extent, heirlooms. I mean, they were a heritage kind of thing. Now they're licensed technology. I mean, patented genetics, hybrid lock-in, and they let one of their seeds fall over on your farm and see what they wind up doing to it. I mean, seed saving is treated as a liability, and local varieties are quietly erased. I remember seeing this thing on PBS a while back about this bean that was absolutely all through Louisiana. It was when we still lived in Texas. And I remember watching PBS one day and they had this thing about these seeds. Absolutely interesting. And they were talking about how this bean, and kind of nobody could find it anymore. This guy was collecting all these different varieties of beans that once were heirlooms in the South. And so many of these varieties, especially with a lot of apple trees and stuff like that, and I've talked about that in the past, how they've just quietly been erased, even though they were flavorful, they were wonderful. Guess what? They're just not shelf stable. So you're not going to see them in the grocery store, but they are absolutely fantastic and nutritious beyond words. You know, a farmer who can't save a seed is already kind of defeated.
Yeah, I remember listening to this one interview. My buddy Tony, he runs the confessionals, but his dad had a podcast. They no longer do it anymore, called Hammer Lane Legends. And what it was is they would just interview a bunch of truckers. Well, they were interviewing this one, like, man, he must have been in his 90s or something like that. But he was a trucker for produce. And he was talking about how when he first got into it, when he was a kid, and even up into like middle age and things like that, until recently, when he would go get a load of watermelons or something like that, there'd be 50 different types of melons within the back of the trailer. And it slowly started dwindling. It was like, okay, we're going further. Like, he started being able to just truck within the state. And then it got to the point where he was having to truck out of state and everything. And how, like, the further away he went, the less diversity in melons he noticed within the whole produce market and everything. So he went from like selling and trucking 50 different types of melons all the way to one seedless variety of watermelon everywhere. And yeah, it's a shame, because like, how many of these melons taste awesome that we don't even know about, just because they don't have much of a shelf life. Like I got a persimmon tree in my front yard. You'll never find that in the grocery store because it has no shelf life. Like, when it's ripe, you better eat it when you find it, or otherwise when you get back to it, it's not going to be ready, or it's going to be rotten.
To that point, most people don't even know that every apple, I don't care if they call it organic, I don't care what they call it. Apples have been, those things are a year old. Everything you see, even in, all these Whole Food grocery stores and stuff like that, they call them organic apples. Well, take that organic apple and then go to one of my local orchards around here, or pick one off of my trees. You'll find out that there is, it'll blow your mind, because you'll find varieties of apples that you can actually smell, that you can actually, you get an odor from. Peaches and pears that you can actually smell. You can't smell them in a grocery store, because they're picking them for how they look, how they ship, and longevity on the shelf. They're not picking them for nutritional quality. So that's something to keep in mind also. So number 3 is chemical farming has replaced ecology. Fertilizers have replaced fertility. That's why I talk about the soil saviors all the time, and why William and I both talk about good night, man. This is exactly why we talk so much about making your own compost. Sprays have replaced balance. Now, if you're making a foliar spray from compost extract, that's another thing altogether. But you'll find out as your soil improves, you need less and less of those things. And bottom line is, soil life has absolutely collapsed. William talked about it in the very top of the program here. 9 times out of 10, when we look at anything under a microscope, if it came from somebody's field, it's already I don't even know how we are even operating at this point. I know why. Because most farmers are working on, they cannot function without inputs. They can't do it. When you have all the fertility right around you right now, it just requires a little bit more work. And I know that's a 4-letter word for a lot of people. Living soil is decentralized power, and the powers that shouldn't be don't want you to know that. Dead soil makes obedient farmers. That's the bottom line on that one.
100%. So also, like, we're taking a hard sciences, like conventional agriculture is taking a hard science approach to something that's soft science. So they're taking something that they can, like, what they think they can reproduce in a lab where they have control of all the variables and they can apply a certain substance and then it fixes, or they have a controlled reaction. That's a hard sciences approach. Nature is not a hard science. There's aspects to it that are hard sciences. But as a whole ecosystem, which is what we're growing food in, it's a soft sciences approach. So think of it as like psychology. I can't copy and paste the same solution to everybody for psychiatry or psychology, whatever it is. I can't copy and paste the same solution for everybody because there's variables I don't have control over. Taking a hard sciences approach to farming assumes that I have control over, and I'm even aware of all of the variables involved in that particular system. Like I remember whenever I first moved to Texas, I was helping out on this conventional farm over just across the river in Oklahoma, and they grew basically corn for Tyson. The only thing that they had control over, and even though they owned the property, the only thing that they had control over was basically how to run the tractors. The seed was outsourced. The fertilization was outsourced. They were on a plowing schedule that they had to follow, or else they wouldn't have been insured the next year. Like, they weren't even allowed to let the land rest. If there was at any point weeds growing up in the 6,000 acres, if there were weeds growing up in this, they would not have been insured for the next year, because then the insurance company was like, "Oh, you're trying to collect insurance on something that you let go fallow, so we're not covering that field this year." So yeah, it's all done intentionally. And then especially like whenever you get the large scale like tractor companies involved, like it used to be, you had a tractor, you knew somebody in town that could fix that tractor if you couldn't fix it yourself. It was all mechanical. And now you have to have some sort of computer guy come out to fix your tractor. And if you don't have their, like John Deere, for example, if you don't have their specific guy come out there who even knows the codes to fix this tractor, then you're in trouble. You're in trouble for having somebody you choose fix your own equipment, and then you're in perpetual debt. It's like most people think that, oh, I'll buy this tractor and then I'll be X more efficient. And that's not the case. You're going to buy this tractor, something on it is going to break that you didn't account for, that's going to be way more money than you expected. And that's what's going to get you in this and stuck in this loop of this debt loop. So
yeah, subsidies, even okay, so you're talking about those subsidies, y'all, are some of the worst things that have ever happened. This is why these farmers, I mean, there's a lot of these guys that are not doing the best thing that's for the environment out there simply because they want that subsidy money. And I got news for you. Even the smaller farmers, I was brought in one time to a group of farmers at this meeting in Asheville, and every farmer in that room was complaining about how they couldn't make a living farming. And I'm like, well, shoot, I do. I don't know what you guys are doing. So I went to a couple of meetings, and then all I would find out is that they would sit there and commiserate about the fact that they couldn't make money as a farmer. And then when I finally asked the question, I'm like, okay, so what are you doing, Farmer A? Well, I was getting this grant. I will tell you this right now. If these guys don't get grants, they cannot function. They cannot operate. Even those smaller farmers. I'm like, so you don't actually have a profitable farm. You have a farm that cannot function unless you get these outside inputs. So I was sitting here, thought I was being a help by saying, well, okay, like this one guy saying, man, these chickens, I'm raising eggs and I'm trying to raise meat birds. I'm just breaking even if I don't get this. And I'm like, well, here's how we do it. And they would give me 10,000 reasons as to why he couldn't do it. Then the other guy, I mean, you name the problem, you name the farm, I was giving them real deal solutions that we use. Not one of them wanted to hear it. All they wanted was their grant money. And if they didn't get that grant, they're out of business. And folks, I mean, the subsidies, the grants, all of it needs to go away, because we're not doing what's best for the environment, and we're not doing what's best for the farmer. really at the end of the day, because they can't even pivot. They got to sit here and do what they're commanded to do. And that flies into number 4, debt as a control system. Like William was talking about these tractors, farming went from stewardship to mining and spreadsheets. Like Jeff Lawton says, farming is mining these days, the way they do it. You got equipment financing. You got, like he mentioned a moment ago, crop insurance compliance, loan inputs. These guys got to borrow money to buy seeds every year. And they're always running. The farms are running on debt, and somebody else is holding the leash. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, son, but that was one of the ones I had down here. You kind of talked about it a moment ago.
I mean, yeah, it's you're in debt for buying the land 9 times out of 10. You're in debt there. And then part of it is, I would say, half debt, half man, what, I don't even know how to word this really, but like the thought that you need all this equipment in order to farm. And then also like mindset going into the farm. Like it's going to be 10 times harder to make a profit off of a farm if you have to go and harvest that produce or that fruit, vegetable, whatever it is. If you have to go plant it, maintain it, harvest it, and then take it to market to sell it, then it's going to be 10 times harder to make a profit off that than it is to raise something that can walk off the farm itself. It talks about it in the permaculture design manual. Like traditionally, the only thing you would sell are the things that can walk off the property itself, because the entire time that animal was on your property, it was replenishing the fertility that it was taking. The fertility stayed on the property. If I do, like, let's say cabbage, for example, is my main form of income. Like if I focus on producing cabbage, then I have to figure out a way to replace the fertility that it took from the property. Or you could just grow the cabbage for yourself. Fertility stays on the property. And then you could sell like ducks or chickens or cows or sheep or goats, whatever you want to do as the income stream for your particular piece of property.
Now, folks, everything we're saying here can be scaled up or down depending on where you fall. I know we're talking a lot about commodities farmers and stuff like that, but remember, this is 5th generation warfare. So number 5, information warfare against farmers. Experience is lost to the so-called experts out there. I mean, we got degrees over dirt under the fingernails kind of knowledge going on out there. We got top-down mandates now. Let's say you're in a HOA. So they're telling you what you can. I mean, man, I heard about a lady getting run out of the place practically because she painted her door an unapproved color on her own house in an HOA. So let's say you're in a HOA and you discover all this stuff and you're thinking, okay, well, we've given you strategies on how to get around that stuff too, even in that environment. Look, if a guy can go out here and chop his cock and balls off and call himself a woman, wait, I just said that. Okay, I didn't mean to say that, but okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just going to own it.
Well, the experts will call him a female.
If they can call that dude a female, you know what? That duck you got out there in your backyard in an HOA, it can be considered a bald eagle, as William said. You got these top-down mandates. You also got these fear-based narratives like, we got bird flu out there. Man, they were sitting there euthanizing freaking ostriches up here in Canada, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? Fear-based motives, but at the end of the day, it requires compliance from we the people. Remember that preamble to the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more blah, blah, the rest of it, okay? Look, bottom line is, it only happens because the people are complacent and compliant. I mean, real world solutions are called unscientific. This is why I don't play that game. I don't care what the rules are. I don't obey unjust laws. Bottom line. And if you don't like it, you can take my mail to the county jail, because I'm not playing along. If for no other reason than my sanity at the end of the day. And also, if I'm talking this game, I better be doing it too. And I do. And son, I'll just pass that one over to you before I say something else about people chopping things off.
On the topic of the experts just don't know crap, or they're pushing lies, or they're just trying to control the population. I did a consultation outside the Houston area of Texas. Now, whenever the the family first moved to that property, they had the NRCS agency, some agent come out, and they were like, hey, what are some options that we can do with this property? What are some things we can do with this property? And he was in good relations with the master gardener, I guess, group down there as well, which is how they got him to come out to the property. And they were like, yeah, we want to do like a orchard. We want to do a garden. We want to do chickens, stuff like that. And his response was like, oh, this is Houston. You can't do an orchard here. Like, this isn't, it's outside of Houston, but it's like, it's too hot to do an orchard here. And my first response was like, you're in a Mediterranean / almost subtropical climate. What do you mean you can't? There's a whole category of trees that I can't do in East Texas because it requires a warmer, humid climate than what I can provide at my property. You have a whole list of trees that are going to thrive in this Mediterranean climate. Where do you think pomegranates come from? Where do you think olives come from? Everybody consumes olive oil. They come from a Mediterranean climate, but his response, his programmed response was, oh no, we can't do fruit trees here, because they're thinking the conventional like apples that you're going to get at the grocery store, or the oranges that you're going to get at the grocery store. You can grow satsumas there. It's not something you're going to find at the grocery store, but it's something like most conventional grocery stores, but it's something that's going to thrive in that part of Texas. There's the so-called, especially government paid experts, only know what they've been told to say. They don't really typically question anything. They don't really do any kind of outside research. They just lean on this degree that they have and think that they're the subject matter expert. And unless they were taught it in their, school, then it's not actually true. They didn't bring up any kind of like climate adjustments they can make to the area in the form of like in-ground or Chinese greenhouses. They didn't say like anything about microclimates, like, oh, here on the north side of the wall, you're going to have more chill hours here, or even the ability to force dormancy in some of these apples. Let's say she didn't want to go to any kind of like bare root nursery and get like some the outlying types of apples. Let's say she just wanted to go to Tractor Supply, pick up the apple there and plant it on her property. They didn't even give her a solution to that. They were just like, yeah, no, you can't do it. They're all going to die.
Yeah, we got some good comments in here. Man, I'm going to have to back up. Man, sorry, I know I've missed so many of them. Where is the doggone cursor on this screen? For some reason, this thing is, I guess I need to get my hands on it. It was being unresponsive. Okay, so, I'll just hit a couple of them here. The government's going to outlaw livestock farming for public health safety. Yeah, Ricky says that. And Ricky, I think you're right on the money. And I don't think for a minute that this alpha gal is some kind of, I guess we just had that a coming. Now people can't even eat meat, for crying out loud. Let's see here. Fed Up says Trump just signed an executive order labeling fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Good. Okay, good. You know what? I can totally agree with that. Now get the CIA to stop bringing it in. Okay.
Yeah.
Regenerative Orchard says, this is a good one here. There's an apple cultivar that originated in Houston called Reverend Morgan. So to your point, I mean, you have the what's that one that they came up with in Israel, the Ein Shimmer, I believe.
Yeah.
I think we even have one down there in Texas.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is absolute lunacy. So number 6 is, I know we got to get a move on here, but biological pressure on the land and life, really. Farms didn't just get regulated, man. They're getting stressed. I mean, all the way around, when you have a system like this, they're creating weaker genetics, declining animal resiliency, big time soil contamination issues. And then you have all these so-called mystery problems with no actual cause. A stress system is easier to control. Like I said, this is going right back into that 5th generation warfare. Anything to add, son?
Yeah, I mean, most conventional farms are sick in like ecosystems. They're not mimicking nature at all. And the reason I say like, or emphasize mimicking nature, is because typically if I go out into the forest that's outside the house, that's a whole ecosystem that requires no human management, that seems to be thriving all on its own. Why can't we replicate that on our own farms? Instead, we keep saying like, oh, and we need to force it to our will. We need it to do just one thing. We need to make it super inefficient, but easy to just mechanize, really. And that's the fail point in most of these conventional farms is, if I have 6,000 acres, I should be growing more things than just corn for somebody else.
Yeah, there's so many different ways you can go about that, man. And number 7 here, y'all, cultural disconnection from the food. And remember, 5th generation warfare. This is all they're doing all this stuff together. And it's so subversive that you can't see it unless you know what you're looking for. I mean, the final move wasn't technical, man. When you get down to brass tacks here, it was really cultural. People no longer know where their food comes from. And like the greatest example, there's so many examples I could give. Go get an apple in that store, take a bite out of it, and then take one of the apples I got in the fridge down there that I collected, that I picked myself. And then before you bite it, like Stefan Subkoviak taught me, before you ever actually consume a food, he was talking about what should happen in your olfactories when you smell it first. Because real food actually has a smell, whether it's detectable to you or not. Your body's going to tell you whether or not it's cool. You know, farmers have turned into villains or curiosities, you know. Everybody is crapping on the farmer because, a lot of them are mismanaging their animals. And you know what? They need some training on that. A lot of them are doing it wrong because grandpa did it wrong. And they don't know what they're doing. But people doing stuff in their backyard is mocked, especially in the hood. Everybody talks about these food deserts out there, but go try and grow a garden in the hood and find out everybody in the neighborhood is making fun of you. That didn't come out of a store. And, you know, they've managed to convince a lot of us that self-reliance is somehow extreme. That's why I'm saying this. We're culturally disconnected from our food in so many ways. It's absolutely positively sickening. And this is exactly how you subjugate a population. If the people don't understand food, then they ain't going to defend farmers. And that's exactly where we are right now. That's why they can go in here and say, oh, bird flu, we're going to wipe out everything. And nobody breathes a word of it. Nobody cares. Oh, we got swine flu. And then what do that? They kill all the pigs out there, euthanize them. Or, you know, all these cows come up dead for reasons that they can't explain. It's all working synergistically in a very evil way, folks. This is why I'm able to back engineer a lot of this stuff, because in permaculture, we find things that, like the fingers of your hand. You know, a thumb doesn't do well all by itself, but, you know, a thumb with all the fingers combined working together as a synergistic group works pretty well. Well, the same thing happens for the powers that shouldn't be. So when you understand this 5th generation warfare, you understand how you can reverse engineer how they're using synergy in the most diabolical ways imaginable. And sadly, it seems to be working some. What do you have to say?
Yeah, the attack on the cultural aspect of food perhaps started like way back. Just look at McDonald's. Before McDonald's popped up, you went to a hamburger place, and depending on which place you went to, the burgers tasted different. And then they tasted different in a different city. They tasted different in a different town, all the way down to like individual restaurants. Each individual restaurant had their own method of making a burger. Fast forward to McDonald's and them intentionally making the burger same no matter what McDonald's you went to. The fries are the exact same no matter what McDonald's you went to.
Unless you're in the hood.
Yeah, unless you're in the hood. Yeah, well, that's a regression, I would say. And it doesn't mean that they had their own take on it. It just means they did one large batch of fries for the entire doggone day. And they ain't refrying nothing. Or like even look at like the different cities. Each city was known for a different aspect of pizza. Like Chicago, deep dish pizza. You can get deep dish pizza anywhere you go in the world right now. Was it Detroit in there, like, or is it Cincinnati in there, like Skyline Chili or something like that? You can get Skyline Chili anywhere you go in the world right now. You can get Kansas City barbecue up in Washington right now. I mean, to an extent. But like you can go to any of these places. Like nobody has like their cultural aspect of food anymore. And if it is like a cultural difference, then the people who grew up in these kind of food systems don't like it because it's different than what it's supposed to be. Look at the TV dinners. You get one Salisbury steak TV dinner, you get another Salisbury steak TV dinner. Tastes exactly the same. And that's what your taste buds get, accustomed to, is just like anything different tastes bad. It doesn't just taste different, it tastes bad. So yeah, it's been a long cultural attack on food.
Yeah, and folks, it's not getting any better anytime soon. But we've often said that we don't give you problems to which we don't provide the antidotes. Looks, that's what all of our previous shows were about, folks. We are here telling you right now that this fifth generation warfare just doesn't apply in the political. It's in every single part of your life. This is, if you get down to brass tacks, if you listen to Eisenhower's farewell speech, he'll talk about how this military industrial complex is pervading every part and he talked about the state house, you know, all the way down to your house. Well, the same thing's happening with this fifth generation warfare. This isn't about fear, y'all. It's about awareness. The fight didn't come with uniforms, just like we talked about in fifth generation warfare. It came with policies, paperwork, bureaucratic nonsense, pressures, and sadly, convenience. And that's why so many of us just kind of go gently. Well, we do go gently into that good night. And here's the good news. Every backyard, every seed saved, every compost pile, every farmer teaching again is a form of resistance, one way or another. All right, y'all. Maybe not the rosiest news in the world, but at least you heard it out there because ain't nobody else talking about this stuff because that's how we ball. All right, y'all. Till next time, you know the deal. Stay alert.
Stay alive.
Roots that run deep, wisdom from Saul, and permaculture dreams. Let the ideas unfold. I'm grooving with the truth. Feeling nature's good. Who's got the answers? All we need to do. Listen to the earth, they got us through. Let's see the change. Watch the world spin. From the smallest sprout to the harmony begin in the cycle of life. For the magic's alive to the